Lithuania's city of Vilnius is hosting a two-day NATO summit starting today, July 11th. And this will not only determine the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but also the future of Kyiv. NATO's membership for Ukraine is a key question at this ongoing summit. And amid Ukraine's counter-offensive efforts against Russian forces on this battlefield, country members of the bloc aim to send a strong message against Russia and its president, Vladimir Putin. However, disagreements among the alliance still remain despite the surprising backing of Sweden's membership bid from Turkey. Prior to the summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he wants a clear signal for his country's membership. Andrea Santos tells us more.
Zelenskyy urges West to give a clear signal on Ukraine's prospects of joining NATO and stressed that Ukraine needs a clear indication of its membership aspirations while it's currently facing a war.
Це ж очевидно, що Україна заслуговує бути в альянсі. Не зараз війна, але нам потрібен чіткий сигнал. І сигнал потрібен саме зараз. Рації більшість альянсу чітко за нас, коли ми подавали заявку на вступ в НАТО, ми говорили відверто, де-факто Україна вже в альянсі. Наша зброя – це зброя альянсу. Наші цінності – це те, у що вірить альянс.
According to Zelenskyy, the additional military support for Ukraine's conflict with Russia would be a topic of discussion during the NATO summit in Vilnius city, Lithuania on July 11 and 12, and he is optimistic about the possibility of receiving weapons. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, however, did not make any concrete membership offer ahead of the summit but proposed that Ukraine is given a chance to skip a step on joining the bloc. Stoltenberg insisted that NATO leaders will send a clear and positive signal to Ukraine regarding its desire to join the bloc. His comments come amid disagreements among country members regarding Ukraine's membership as long as it is in conflict with Russia. The NATO chief proposed that member states should remove the requirement for its Membership Action Plan, or MAP, for Ukraine. Removing this would shorten Kyiv's accession path.
And then to remove the requirement for Membership Action Plan. This will turn the membership process for Ukraine from a two-step process into a one-step process. So all of this will send a positive and strong message.
Bypassing NATO's MAP is among the three elements in a proposed multi-year program for Ukraine. Another step involves Ukraine moving closer to NATO by ensuring what Stoltenberg calls as full interoperability between NATO and Ukrainian forces. Ukraine will also be politically tied to the alliance via the new Ukraine-NATO Council, with Zelenskyy to attend the event. Countries like Germany and US have opposed nations Poland and the Baltic states, which have supported Ukraine's NATO accession. It can be remembered that last week, US President Joe Biden himself told CNN that Ukraine was not ready to join NATO, saying that, quote, "I think we have to lay out a rational path for Ukraine to be able to qualify to be able to get into NATO," end of quote. It can be remembered that the Ukrainian president received support from the Turkish counterpart, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for the membership bid for Kyiv. Meanwhile, in a surprise turn of events, Erdogan has also dropped his opposition to Sweden's application to join NATO, though no clear timeline has been announced for Sweden's accession to the alliance. Reporting, this is Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
Russia's Kremlin reveals that President Vladimir Putin met Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin after the mutiny. Jean Domingo gives us more on this report.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Wagner private military company chief Yevgeny Prigozhin several days after the organization aborted their mutiny as part of a deal mediated by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. This was revealed by Kremlin Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov on Monday, who confirmed a report by a French newspaper which claimed that Putin had met with Prigozhin. Peskov said that Putin had a 3-hour meeting with Prigozhin on January 29th, and 35 people were invited, including unit commanders and the management of Wagner. Putin had also given an evaluation of Wagner's PMC's actions during the conflict with Ukraine and talked about his assessments of the events of the June 24th mutiny of Wagner forces in Russia. The Russian president apparently held the meeting and listened to the explanations of Wagner commanders. He also offered further employment as well as combat deployment options. The Wagner commanders had also given their account of the mutiny, while stressing that they are staunch supporters and soldiers of the head of state, ready to fight for Russia going forward. It can be remembered that Prigozhin vowed strong retaliation on June 23 after accusing the Defense Ministry of Russia of staging a missile strike on the Wagner camp. Eventually, Wagner troops went to Rostov-on-Don city, capturing several military installations, with some forces marching on Moscow. The Federal Case Bureau, or FSB, opened a case against the Wagner chief, but was eventually dropped after reaching a deal mediated by Lukashenko, and part of the deal was Prigozhin being exiled to Belarus. However, Lukashenko later revealed that Prigozhin is not in Belarus, but in St. Petersburg, following reports that the FSB raided the Wagner chief's lavish mansion, seizing his assets but returning them afterwards. There were also Russian media reports indicating that Prigozhin walked into the FSB's office on July 4 to retrieve his seized assets. Last week, Lukashenko suggested that Wagner forces could be used to defend Belarus, inviting the group to train the Belarusian military. He also said he is not troubled to have a certain number of Wagner fighters stationed in the country. But the prospect of Wagner's moving to Belarus made neighboring countries wary, particularly Ukraine and NATO member Poland. Poland on Friday announced that it will deploy hundreds of soldiers and vehicles to the border with Belarus, saying that it needs to prevent attempts to destabilize the region, with Warsaw's 12th Mechanized Division saying that around 1,000 troops and 200 units of equipment will be stationed in the eastern province of Podlasky, located on the border with Belarus. Belarus has made similar allegations against Poland, claiming that Minsk coup plotters are being trained in Poland. Ukraine is also wary after satellite photos emerge, suggesting that Belarus is building an army camp for Wagner fighters located at a former military base outside Osipovichi, a Belarusian town 230 kilometers north of the Ukrainian border. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SM9 News.